world of the 1990s exposes us to an increasingly complex and exciting range of information. Knowledge is no longer primarily based on the written word. Our early ancestors flourished through a combination of physical dexterity and a capacity for problem solving. The industrial age separated the worker from the land and the seasons and imposed a sense of mechanized time. The current post-industrial period demands of workers a focus on service and the capacity to be flexible. In business, managers must be able to know and understand the products of computing, such as electronic spreadsheeting and database management, as well as visual demonstrations of mathematical and statistical concepts. Traditional disciplines, including accounting, engineering, and architecture, use many forms of knowledge generation. The notion of literacy involves the capacity to both read and write. The new literacy of the late 20th century also demands both receptive and manipulative skills. This new literacy must also recognize that we have many ways of learning and knowing. The recent developments in communication technology have provided insights into words which were once hidden. For example, both computer graphics and satellite photography, as seen on the nightly news, have developed the layperson's understanding of meteorology. Technology is increasing its impact on society. Many professionals and managers who seek to control and synthesize knowledge are experiencing an increasing sense of frustration. Typically, they find that the computerized systems which they use are designed by computing experts whose vision of the world is incompatible with their own. An answer to this dilemma is a new language which will accommodate traditional text as well as all the various ways of learning and knowing. The many existing capacities of computing must come within the control of the intuitive, lateral thinking user. What is needed is an individual fluent in the language of computing who values human beings and the way they learn and think. Such an individual would also require the intelligence, the courage, and the creativity to generate a new culture. Andy diSessa, Professor of Education at the University of California at Berkeley, is just such a person. Andy came to education via undergraduate physics at Princeton and a doctorate at MIT. There, he began working with Seymour Papert as part of the LOGO team, the team which developed the world's most widely used educational software. Since the 1980s, Andy has been working on the development of Boxer. Perhaps the most important feature of Boxer is that it facilitates the user to create marvels on the computer screen, to in fact sculpt the interaction. Andy has created a computational medium which empowers the user, as contrasted with the typical use of the computer as a presentation device.
In two words, Boxer is a computational medium, and that sounds a little technical, but let me start from a familiar reference point. We all know that reading and writing is a very important part of our culture, especially our educational culture. It's the foundation of learning in school for all kinds of things. And it's also very widely spread. Kids and teachers and adults use it every day for all kinds of things. And basically the idea is if we extend the medium, that is written text, with much more kinds of capability, as we can do in a computer, then we have the basis for a new kind of literacy that can lead to very much better kinds of educational properties with respect to children being interested, learning actively, and with respect to teachers really playing an active role in constructing the learning environment. So I like to think about starting with text. Boxer, our system, is a text processing system, but it frees text from its linear structure and allows you to organize things in very neat hierarchical forms so that what's important is very easily visible and the details are hidden until you're ready for them. And it allows you to cross-link and reorganize this text very, very easily. But beyond that, we have very importantly, interactive capabilities, moving pictures and the ability to interact with those pictures. Finally, Boxer really is a programming language. What that really means is that everybody, from little kids to teachers to curriculum developers to experts to researchers, has the capability to reconstruct and build whatever they like in this medium.
Andy's goal has been to create a system that facilitates learning in school children and teaching skills in those who educate them. His philosophy has been that children should be enabled to use both language and mathematical skills in order to develop knowledge. The impetus behind Boxer has been a desire to create an environment in which academic disciplines are able to be seen and used as tools for the mind.
The system really ought to be intuitive and easily appropriable. So that was one focus that we wanted to work on. The other is just with respect to the breadth of use. I think it's important that a medium be immediately useful and useful every day, from the most menial kinds of tasks, writing notes or just scribbling for a kid, to very profound and sort of extended documents.
Andy diSessa is motivated by a belief in democratizing access to knowledge. He aims to break down the barriers that exist between disciplines, including computing and information management.
We're really about democratizing technology, and that is bringing the immense power of computers into everybody's hands. And in particular, we've designed Boxer so that the distinction between the user and the developer is absolutely invisible. Our students feel that they can modify and change and add and subtract to everything that we provide to them, in addition to being able to do their own work in the system. So we really aim at dissolving the barrier between the developer, who has a lot of power, and the user, who is constrained by the ideas that the developer had.
Boxer addresses the challenge of making a computing environment duplicate intuition. It aims to mimic the creative process. If this is the case, why has the focus of the Boxer group been primarily on education and junior students?
We've been looking for some time at how children behave when they have lots of computers about. Mainly we look at children because they come to computing with a naive approach, and they demonstrate things which we actually don't know how to do ourselves, because they have expectations which are not already clouded by what they know. And we're trying to take the learnings from what children will do and look at how they can be used by older people, whether those give us leads into the future.
Liddy Nevile is the senior researcher in the Sunrise project at the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology. With more than 10 years of experience in investigating the impact of computerized environments on students, she is ideally situated to comment on the aptitude of children for computing.
At the Methodist Ladies College in Melbourne, we've had an opportunity to look at a community, a closed community of 2,000 students and several hundred teaching staff, and look at how a total community changes when there are computers available to all students and all staff whenever they want them.
This research on the creation of an integrated computing culture is one of the largest scale studies in the world. The Sunrise project, funded by external research funds, has a dual focus. It is analysing changes in an applied computing culture, as at MLC, while also researching and developing Boxer. One development area that the Sunrise group is addressing is the applicability of Boxer to the business environment.
We're looking at Boxer as being a tool which brings together a lot of the information in one medium, the information which is processed, analysed, worked on perhaps by different parts of an organisation, but which the sort of information which comes to the executive's desk and on which he makes decisions. And we look at this person not wanting to write programs as such, not wanting to think in computer talk about what he wants to do, but to think about the sorts of business decisions he's trying to make. And in doing that, to be able to draw upon the information that he's been presented with. I think that we think of Boxer as providing people with a workbench on which to play with ideas. We're conscious, I think, of the fact that decisions are often made by people thinking around in laterally for quite some time and then suddenly closing on a particular decision. I think that's what we call a decision, when somehow the divergent pieces are brought together. So decision-making seems to be a rather funny, intuitive process. Often it's based on a lot of information that's from different places, but we don't have a medium in which you can bring together a lot of different things in an intuitive way. And what we imagine happening in Boxer is that people will play around with the bits of information they have, the divergent model that they have, and then suddenly bring together various pieces and see them coming together. Setting up a strategic plan for some projects is a good example of the integration of Boxer, that in most computing environments you can prepare your plan in a word processor or perhaps in a database, and then if at a later date for some reason you want to revisit the work that's been done, you can go back and you can drag it out of the word processor and put into a database, whatever it might be. But I think we're conscious, those of us who use computers a lot, that there is a difference between working in a word processor and working in a database, and we may actually think carefully about which one we want to work in before we start. With Boxer, there will be no particular difference because the tools are available all the time. The sorts of things that you find in the spreadsheet are always available, whether you're word processing or playing with numbers, so that there'll be no need to make this commitment at the beginning. And when in fact one does go back to revisit the work, it'll be very easy to take it and use it again. It won't be taking it out of something into something else. It'll just be revisiting and working on. When one goes back to some information in Boxer, or in fact is given a tool that somebody else has perhaps crafted, or some information has been left about that you want to explore, it's simply a process of opening up a box. And it's a minimalist approach. There's very little on the screen. There's simply a box in which there's another box, in which there's another box. And you just explore by going in and out. There's no need to have windows and menus and screen help, because it's very intuitive. If you can open up something and have a look and then just open up another one, or close that and open a different one, that's an intuitive way of moving around in the real world, and we do that intuitively on the screen too.
RMIT is not the sole researcher outside America developing the application of Boxer. Richard Noss of the Institute of Education at London University, together with his colleague Professor Celia Hoyles, is looking at its application in the field of mathematics.
What I'm interested in is people actually programming computers in the same way that non-experts use word processors. Boxer seems to have made a significant step forward in lowering the threshold of programming for people.
Out of a research base that initially focused on physics and children's learning, has emerged a computational medium which is the foundation of the system of the future. Boxer is a medium which incorporates the use of hypertext, which can facilitate the production of laser-printed documents for publication, and which also allows the user to interact with a range of media. Most importantly of all, Boxer will allow a non-expert user to program, to intuitively develop connections and interconnections which give a new power over knowledge. By the 90s, we have grasped the understanding that within one society, company, or organization, there are many groups who use language and conceptual tools in their own particular ways. The breakthroughs occur when these groups are able to communicate with each other. Boxer is designed to break down the barriers to knowledge and communication. It will provide an individual with the capacity to build a micro-world and then allow that world to be shared by others. Boxer is designed for human beings, not computer boffins.
Well, at this point, we just have a prototype system. What we need is a robust and very well-documented system that runs on machines that are widely out in the population, or will be out widely in the next few years. That's the kind of development that we simply don't have the resources to pursue. What we need to realize the potential of Boxer is simply the dollars and cents in order to engage in a research and development project with emphasis on the development in making a version of Boxer that's widely disseminable, that runs on commonplace machines and that people can afford.
I think it's easy to look at something like Boxer and assume that this could just be planned in a year or so and could be released, and why are people taking so long and spending so much time fiddling around with a system that looks so simple? The system is simple in its presentation, but it's built upon now a decade of computing among young people and people who are what we might call naive users, people who don't come as computing experts, but who come wanting to have access to computer power. And it's probably the first system that really represents a lot of the thinking that's gone on in the artificial intelligence communities for perhaps 30 years now. I think the goal of the Boxer exercise is to end up with a small notebook computer that contains Boxer, so that one would carry around an electronic notepad, a pad in which you might write a shopping list, in which you might be doing some complicated modelling for some very serious task that you're engaged in, and something which might also contain some entertainment, perhaps a novel or something. And we're particularly lucky at RMIT to be able to participate in this project. The Boxer project started at MIT and went across to Berkeley with diSessa, and we've been tracking it as it's been developing. And to have learnt as much as we have in the past from Boxer has been wonderful, but now to actually participate in the project is even more exciting.
This Boxer research work provides a window into tomorrow's world of user computing.